in Islam to me as a non-Muslim and then as a Muslim. When I finally became a Muslim after 20 or more years of thinking it over, the first thing I wanted to do was make the Hajj. When I circled the Kaaba for the first time, I was in a state of wonder. You're there with tens of thousands of people all doing the same thing at once. You're literally putting God at the center of your life for that period of time.
At the culmination of the Hajj, on the plain of Arafat, on a small hill called the Mount of Mercy, Muhammad gave his final sermon.
Here is a man who began his mission as this individual in Mecca, persecuted with almost no followers, and his life is completed with a valley filled with tens of thousands of people that have accepted his message, and there he is preaching to them his final sermon, and in it, in a sense, is a summation of this universal teaching.
He tells them to be good to each other and not to violate each other's rights, for men and women to treat each other humanely, for brothers and sisters to treat each other well, and for Muslims to treat each other as brothers and sisters. And perhaps most importantly, he calls an end to revenge, to blood killing, to the vendetta, which has bled this culture terribly since he was born. At the end of Muhammad's sermon, he does not list his achievements. This man has unified people. He has taught them monotheism. He has brought them to peace. And yet he doesn't mark these as his accomplishments. Quite the opposite. He asks his community, have I fulfilled my mission to my God and to you? You can hear in his words the desire for a completed mission. This is a man of faith who is unsure of his effects. This is a very human moment in which he needs to know and he asks. And the people affirm that yes. 3 times they say, yes, you have fulfilled your mission.
This was not a leader who was looking for his legacy in time. It wasn't for any purpose other than to make sure that when he was going to face his Maker, he was going to be accountable. And he would be in a position of saying, Allah, I did the best I could, and I hope I was successful in doing it. And that's all we can do as human beings.
I think that if I were to say that I hope to exemplify any part of Prophet Muhammad's life, it would be the issues around the dignity near the end of life. For the rest of the day. He's a good friend of mine. And I know he knows my voice. And now I know for sure he knows my voice. Hi. I'm visiting Mr. Hamoud, who is a patient that's terminal. Sure. When he was not in the condition he's in now, he was very delightful, very loving, and very much wanting to tell his story. So we'd sit and listen and talk for long hours, and he'd give me all of his history and his past. So we're very bonded. He slipped into a more terminal stage, meaning less responsive. Although he responds, he's just unable to speak. Prophet Muhammad has taught us that near the time of death, the Holy Quran to hear is soothing, very soothing to the soul. And since it's a part of our lives on a daily basis anyway, we derive great comfort from the hearing of the Quran. While I'm stroking a head or I'm speaking softly, I say the things that I think Muhammad would say. Prophet Muhammad has taught us that we don't even understand, we could never comprehend the value of taking care of the ill or providing for the dying, maintaining their dignity. And I believe that that's my mission, to be the helper, to be the listener, to be a comforter in many ways. The prophet knew that death was coming. He had an indication that he would not be around for much longer.
Muhammad had been feeling ill. He'd had some fever. It was clear that he was in real difficulty in terms of his health. And the household seemed to be convinced that Muhammad was dying.
And while he was on his deathbed, and there were many who surrounded him, especially his close companions and his family, he called for silence around him. And he wanted it to be a time of quiet and of peace and of calm.
Embraced by the community he had founded in Medina and cared for by his wives and companions, Muhammad died peacefully on June 8th in the year 632. The news of his death shocked his followers, especially Omar, who believed Muhammad would outlive them all.
People began to hear, Prophet is dead. Omar went to the center square and started to say, there are hypocrites and liars who are saying that the Prophet is dead.
In the midst of this chaos, Abu Bakr reminded the Muslims of a verse from the Quran that had first been revealed after the Battle of Uhud, when they feared that Muhammad had been killed.
Abu Bakr comes into this scene of pandemonium, and he immediately stands up and says, whoever worshipped Muhammad, then know that Muhammad is dead. But whoever worshipped God, know that God lives on and never dies. And so suddenly these people are brought to their senses that indeed that Muhammad is a man, and men are mortal. And this is his legacy. He did everything within his power to prevent himself from being worshipped, because he recognized that that was a danger inherent in religious tradition, that the object of worship becomes the messenger and not the one sending the message.
Prophet Muhammad was a man, his flesh and blood, who brought one of the most eloquent revelations to mankind. He's set an example to mankind through his behavior, through his actions, a living example. This is a legacy that he's left for Muslims.
Muhammad's legacy is obviously the seed that he planted. It is his righteousness, his honesty, his integrity, his model as a political leader, his model as an individual, a man who has made great accomplishments in his time, and yet who didn't let the successes overpower him, didn't let his ego get the best of him. He remains, I think, more than anything else, a great role model.
Muhammad is the kind of person who combines political and military and social and religious and intellectual dimensions of life in ways that are important for those of us in the 21st century who are struggling to put together complete lives ourselves.
If I were to have met Prophet Muhammad on the street, I feel like I would know him, and as though he would know all of us. The beauty of it is we live our lives through his examples, but he's not God. Our reverence is to God, and our reference is to him. So how I walk and how I speak and how I carry myself and how I treat my husband and how I treat my mother and my father and how I behave as a sister and a daughter and a nurse and a friend and a neighbor, That's all Prophet Muhammad in action.
There's more about Muhammad and his legacy on PBS Online. Experience a virtual pilgrimage to Mecca, read essays by people from the program, and much more. Visit PBS Online at pbs.org. To purchase a video cassette of Muhammad or a DVD with additional features, call 888-786-0444. Major funding for Muhammad, Legacy of a Prophet, has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, Arabian Bulk Trade, Sabadia Family Foundation, the El Hibri Foundation, the Irfan Katwari Foundation, and Mir Imran. Additional funding has been provided by many other organizations and individuals.
This is